Hi everybody, I'd like to take you on an excursion to the coast in Norfolk, and we're going to have a go at sketching Happisburgh Lighthouse. Hi, my name is Jackie Smurden, this is Dunnock Studio, and we've got a sunny day for a change. And I recently went out and visited Happisburgh Lighthouse and took some photos, so we could have a little look at how to do a quick line and wash sketch using a photograph. If you don't have any pens to line with, please don't worry, just enjoy painting along in watercolour. So this is Happisburgh Lighthouse, and this was requested as a painting by one of my lovely viewers. We are going to sketch Happisburgh Lighthouse, and this is on the Norfolk coast, and if you look Happisburgh up you'll see that it is very steadily, but unfortunately for some properties, falling into the sea. So you might want to have a little look if you're not from this part of the world, and you'll see where the lighthouse is in relation to the coast at the moment. But the coastline's moving all the time. So I'm very lucky, I've got a printer, I can print off pictures. One thing I do like to do is to print one off in black and white. And if you do that, you can really get a feel for the values in the painting. Can you see that? When you look at the two side by side, you can see where the lights and darks are. Quite a lot easier, I think, with this. I'm not very good at squinting and trying to work out where the lights and darks are. It doesn't really work for me. So if you're the same as me, you might find it useful to print them off, one in black and white. Obviously, not everybody's got access to a printer. If you do have a phone or tablet, you can convert the picture to black and white on that as well, which is a very useful little tip. So I've got a reference photo, but I'm not going to stick too closely to that. The first thing I'm going to do is going to do a bit of line. Now, line and wash, you will have heard that term. You can put colour on, then do lines on top. That's generally what I do, but just for a change we're going to do it the other way around. So I'm going to put my lines down first. Now I've got two art pens here, Micron and a uni pen. These are water and fade proof, which you might be able to just see on there, on that one. Now, if you haven't got an art pen and you're thinking, oh Jackie, you've just done something that I can't do, just go and get a black biro. This one is a uni ball. It's a fine one. Double check on somewhere on there it says water and fade proof. Now I've taken the three pens and I've done a little squiggle, just let it settle, and now I'm going to get a damp brush and just paint straight over with some water. And I can tell you I did it too soon earlier and it hadn't quite dried, so learn from that, make sure they're dry. They don't take long to dry. So test out any pens you've got. A black biro will do the job as well. The fine liners just mean you've got a nicer, finer line. So I'm now going to use my Micron Micron, and I've got a light pencil drawing underneath here. I'm going to look at my reference a little bit, but I'm just going to try and just to loosen up and do what we call a continuous line drawing. Now, you might not want to do this, that's absolutely fine, but it's a really good way of loosening up your work. So you don't have to keep the pen on there all the time, but it's quite a nice thing to do. If you've never done this before, have a go with a pencil and just see what you think. So by not taking your pen off, you're allowing your hand to just follow the shapes and perhaps make a more interesting style of drawing. It doesn't have to be accurate. I'm not making this an accurate drawing by any means. And I'm trying to look at the reference and my painting, which it will be a painting, at the same time, so that I don't end up just copying the photograph. This is me having a bit of fun. Just let that line go for a walk, really. This is looking quite nice. There are some extra lines on here which are nothing to do where the colours are, so that's quite fun. I could speed this bit up for you, couldn't I? Make my video a little bit shorter, but it wouldn't be a Dunnock Studio video if I did. Occasionally I do that and speed things along a little bit, but I'm going to do some nice relaxing line drawing with you. So if you're having a go with me, well done. Again, if you're not sure about this, you don't have to do the drawing bit first at all. There's nothing wrong with tracing out a photo if that's how you'd like to do it. No such thing as wrong. Dunnock Studio, just do what you want to do. So now I've done my lighthouse quite loosely. There are hints of windows here and there. I've got a telegraph pole, but artistic license, I'm going to move him. He's over here now, and he's going to not be right in the centre of my photo. So there we go. You can do that with your own paintings. It's great. We might put a little line onto him just to suggest it's going off somewhere. There we go. That's all that needs. So here I've got a building. I'm getting much looser now around foliage, or what I think is foliage. Some sort of tree here. None of this matters, it's just stuff. This is a watercolour sketch pad. Just a note, when you go and buy a sketch pad, if you like the idea of doing a sketch on the move, double check it's a watercolour sketch pad, because a lot of them are drawing sketch pads, and that's great until you throw all sorts of watercolour on them. Not good so good then. So keeping my pen on those lines, just following through here, just looking nice lead in with these lines here, and we've got a little building here. Just keep it nice and simple. There's also a wall in there somewhere. You start getting into the detail, then squint so you can't see it. And we go around the corner. There's some sort of tree here. This one doesn't appear to have any leaves on at the time I visited, in the wilds of East Norfolk. And a little chimney on here. It's got quite tall chimney stacks. There we go. So artistically, what else would I do with this? It needs a little line here for some colour. There's a little bit more to be made of that shrubby thing there, and we might have some birds up here later. So there's my line. I could spend hours doing that correctly and carefully, but I chose not to. Did a continuous line, which is quite nice and freeing, because you're not worried about all the detail. That's it. So that is dry, but just to be sure, I'll leave it a minute. Now I'm going to have a little think about colour. So the feature of this painting is the lighthouse. So it's red or crimson, and it's against a blue sky. So I could change the sky, I could make it sunset, but I'm not going to do that today. So what I thought I'd do is show you how you could perhaps use your colour wheel if you've got one. If you haven't, have a look in my channel. You'll find a colour mixing video which will help you make your own. So in the middle here we've got all these options. Can you see the one that says triad there? So here's my red. I want the top of the triangle to point to the red, coming off that triad to the red, because that's my feature colour, if you like. So where does the other two corners go? They go off to a blue corner and they go off to a yellow corner. So it's like a cool yellow. It's sort of getting towards yellow green, and the blue is, yeah, it's a cool blue heading towards the blue green. So if I use that as a basis for my painting, I use a triad to compose my picture, if you like, in colour. You don't have to do this, you can pick any colours you like. That's what I'm going to try and do. So with that in mind, I'm going to have a bluey sky, drop some blue in onto the lighthouse itself, maybe drop some blue in down here just so it links across, and we're going to have the reds on there, and then the rest of my painting will be yellowy green, yellowy warm yellow. I'm not going to copy the colours on this. So let's have a little think, how would we do this? So you could just throw paint on it, but you particularly want to try and keep these areas nice and clear. So you could mask this all out with masking fluid if you've got a mind to, but no, not going to do that. I'm just going to get my lovely pot of clean water. For those of you who haven't seen this one, I made this myself on a very short pottery course, so if you fancy making something on a pottery course, make your own water pot to rest your brush on. So what I'm going to do is just lightly pop some water on. This is where I check whether or not my pen is dry, and I haven't got this taped down or anything because this is a sketch pad, so you wouldn't, well, you could tape it down if you're out, but I don't think you'd want to. So just pop in some water onto there. I'm looking very much to the side here to see if I've got the paper damp in all the spots. I've gone over my little flag at the top, so I might end up with a bit of a bleed into that, and that's a shame because I wanted that to be white, at least to start with. So try and lift off the water, but know full well that that won't work because the paper is damp, but let's just lift it out a little bit. So lots of water on there. Now I've got to let that settle. Now the settling takes as long as the temperature in the room, as long as the type of paper you've got, if how the sizing is it staying shiny for a long time? This one definitely is. You might be able to see that. Quite shiny, isn't it? Now if I throw paint on that now, it's just going to go into a big puddly mess. So I need to get this water to run off the sides a little bit. Unfortunately though, with things like this, the other end is now drying, so to like work at it a bit. I can still see the water running up and down the page. I'm going to put my sky on in a second, so I'm just going to use my high-tech prop here just to give my board or my sketchbook a little slant down. And I'm now going to pick up some colour and just see what happens. So starting off with a fairly warm blue, and today all the colours I'm using are hopefully ones you'll have. So this is ultramarine blue. I'm just popping that in along the top here, so where the sky would be bluest. So I could spend a lot more time doing that and do it, oh, that's a bit richer, isn't it? There we go. Just pop that in there. So as it starts to come down, it's drying really fast now. So I'm just bringing that down. Now going to switch into a cool blue. which is cerulean. You can see it's a little bit greener in its sort of colour than the ultramarine at the top, which is more towards the violet. So I'm now just bringing my brush down, not adding any more colour. It's already dried at the bottom there. Try not to have clouds and things in this one because I don't want them to be any detail. Look how quickly that area dried. The top's still wet. Not to worry, it's a sketch. You can see where it's just pooling on the edge there because I haven't taped it or anything. Just going to lift it up, encourage it to run maybe at a slight angle. Whilst it's doing that, I can just tickle it into some areas, maybe. You see that line down there, trying to get rid of that. There we go. That area did dry, so I've got a little bit of a mark there, but that's fine. So I wouldn't normally be that careful, if I'm honest, around an edge like that. But just wanted to show you can stay within the lines if you want to. With that said, leave that to keep going. Now I'm not going to do this yet because it's right next to a wet part, but we can do this bit. So remember what I said, we need to keep some blue in the picture. So back to my water, and pop some water on down here. Just splash it around a bit, doesn't matter if we leave some gaps down here because it's not sky. So pick up my ultramarine blue again, which is a warm blue, so I wouldn't really want too much of the cool blue in the foreground here. So where would I put the blue? Well, I'd put it into some of these shrubby bits. And we've also got the house roof. We can start off by giving that a little bit of blue so it ties the picture together. There we go, dropping that in. Doesn't matter if you go over the edge, don't worry. Oops, wrong blue. There we go. And then just pull some of that blue into these areas here, which are like the side verges, if you like, of the driveway. Going up there, and there's just a little bit in the middle of there, which is where there's some grass growing in the middle of the track. Something like that. Quick brush, wash, and then whilst it's doing its thing, I'm going to drop in some greens. Just so some of these will run back up into the sky because it's still wet. That's absolutely fine. Going to just let that run into that area. Got a pale wall here, so I'm going to probably pop one of my yellows on that in a minute. Let's have some of the greens and yellows this area. You can see I've got this edge again, which is what you don't really want that to go back up into your picture, so just see if you can catch it with a cloth or a dry brush. Got a puddle there as well. There it goes. So picking up a little bit of warmer yellow now and just dropping that over here. This is a warm yellow, which is just raw sienna, that's all it is, raw sienna. Pop that on this side as well. So still going with the yellow theme, but let's pop a bit more yellow in there as well. Keep it loose. Pop some across there. That's where the gates are. Keep the cottage clear. Pop a bit of sienna into these trees so that they link to the rest of the painting. Think about your colours going around your painting so they're not just in one area. So I've got my thirsty brush, I'm just vacuuming up go. Take off those dribble areas so you don't get the back runs. Because I've got ultramarine blue, I'm getting some granulation there, which is inevitable with ultramarine blue. It's not very easy to get a flat wash with that, but I don't mind that too much. So we've still got dampness here. So let's get a nice small brush and let's see, what can we do? So we've got some greeny areas there. So if I just get a little bit of ultramarine blue onto a small brush, might not be strong enough. I'm going to try it and just splatter into this area here. There you go, and there. Gives it a little bit of life. There we go. So at this point, I'm going to let that dry. I could just throw the red on and it would splatter everywhere. The interesting thing about this lighthouse is it's on top of the land, so there's no waves or crashing surf to incorporate into this painting from this particular view, because it's absolutely nowhere near the sea yet, but it will be, I'm sure, in the future. So let that settle and dry. Just hung my painting outside of the studio window for 5 minutes and it's now nice and dry. If you put your hand like that, you can feel any coolness on your paper. Your painting is not dry. So that's as dry as I need it to be. I am being careful because I don't want the red to bleed into the sky, but you don't have to paint like that. You can paint however you like. So you could try an angle shader brush like this, which can help you get into some areas of your painting. You can try a flat brush, but realistically any brush will do. If you've got a point on your brush, you can get into most corners. So I'm just going to maybe just make this area a little bit more interesting by popping the water on first. Whilst that's soaking in, just looking for the reference to see where the coloured bands start, because they're not absolutely in the same place as where the ribs are on the lighthouse. Done that trick again of going over the area I didn't want to go over. It's very annoying when you do these things, isn't it? Let's just lift that off. I mean, if that happens and you're really desperate that you don't get paint in an area, then let the whole thing dry and then start again. But we'll see what happens. So I'm going to assume that the sides are further away on here. So what does that actually mean? Well, that means if I paint the sides crimson relatively carefully, and the shady areas as well, but the sides are going away from me. That definitely includes this area. And as you come towards the middle, the colour is facing me. So I'm just then going to add the warm red. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense. I'll explain it again. Going back to my crimson and just check that the water isn't a flood. So this one, the band starts slightly lower down and then around here actually goes below that line. Don't know why I'm being super careful. I don't need to be. Sometimes I am a bit like that. I just can't help myself. There's a line, got to do something with it. So then picking up my warm red, which is cadmium red, and pulling that into the middle, like that. Trying to keep a nice smooth line there. By doing that, I'm trying to suggest that the part of the building that's closest to you is the warmest part, because the further away a colour is, even if it's just round to the side of a lighthouse like it is here, would theoretically be cooler than the colour directly in front of you. Let's see if I took enough water off this area to keep that little window there. There we go. So interesting, it's bled right there, look, because my water clearly ran off the lighthouse. That's fine. A little bit of lift out there, and in fact a little bit of lift out with this could suggest some light on the front, like that. Or you could use a brush. For those of you who know my channel, you would have done lift out with me before. So there we go. So I've got some colour on there. I need some colour on the top. That's right at the top, and it's got quite a lot of light on it. However, one side is less light than the other. So I'm just going to pop my point of my brush in here with the crimson, and then pick up the cadmium red for the other side. It's not particularly strong cadmium, this one. It's one of my student quality ones, which is great fun, but sometimes lacking in a bit of pigment. Now this one here is already dried at the top area, so if I want to, I can come in with this lovely round brush that's got a nice point on it, and I can add more details loosely following these lines, but adding in a bit of strength using the red paint, and again trying to keep it nearer the central area. I might want to embellish around that, for instance. And if it's not quite working, you can just pull it out again. Once you've got that going, you can pick up the crimson, carry the theme on round to the sides where you think there might be a darker area, or it's just cooler. That's not crimson, so I don't do that one. And there, you get the idea. Just have a bit of fun with your reds, so it's not just a flat boring red painting, because if it's just flat it doesn't look particularly interesting. So that's got a bit of life to it now. Now going back to my cottage, it's a dark area, so if I add the crimson and glaze over the top of the blue, we're going to add a dark in here. The crimson then is being pulled across the painting and not just going into one area of it. Just pop that in here, that's part of that roof. And then the warm red, we could just tickle down the driveway a little bit. So if it's on some of the stones here, if it's too much for you, you think no, that's not working, just lift it off. It'll just leave a little hint behind, which is quite nice. That's now drying already there. So going back to the lighthouse, just needing to let this dry a little bit. Remember we had the cool blues and the ultramarines earlier, and we've just put the lovely alizarin crimson over the top of the ultramarine. But now if I put those together in my palette and mix up a violet, which you can see there, alizarin crimson and ultramarine violet, I can then perhaps just tickle in some shadows around this lighthouse here. Don't worry about being too accurate with this, but you'll see some shadows on the photograph, and a violet colour is a nice colour for a shadow. It works in lots of paintings really, but particularly this one because it's already got the crimson in it. And what we're going to do up here, we've got some crisscrossy lines, some like the, I don't know anything about lighthouses, not fencing is it, something at the top there. We've got these crisscrossy lines, and just add a few in there. Got a line where that is. Now that little flag I kept purposefully white, but remember that nice warm yellow we had earlier, which was raw sienna. So raw sienna with a tiny drop of the random yellows as well, and we can just pop onto that flag there. A little bit heavy, just lift it out. So it's not bright white now, it's just like a goldy yellow. That's nice, I like that. Equally, we could put some more onto the wall, which is here, make that look a little bit more. So what happens if we put the violet and the raw sienna together? Well, violet is red and blue and raw sienna is yellow, so guess what? You get a grey. There we go. And that's quite nice. Just for adding a little bit, put some in that bit there. You could use that down the driveway just to add some shadows, something coming out of there. There we go, a little bit of grey in your paintings that you've mixed yourself is a great way to add some depth and interest. If it's a bit heavy, just lift it off. There we go, good old towel, can't go wrong with them, can you? So the White House I'm going to leave as it is, but I will just add a little bit of that violet into those windows just to darken them down. This one has got a window here, so let's just pop some in there. There we go. Remember, we've got the wire here and the poles, so we could just pop a little dark on there. I'm not going to add much more to that. If you really wanted to, you could get a rigger or a liner, whatever you want to call it, make it a little bit grayer, the violet, by adding that yellow, and just hint that it's going to the house. That's probably it. Didn't really make a line, it just made dots. And oh, I promised you birds, didn't I? Wonder how many of you paint birds. If you've got a dark colour, which I haven't really, it's not that dark, but it's darkish, go for the lightest area on your sky. You can see that's not very strong. So if you want it to be stronger, pick up that blue and try that little one again. Do a little tick and upside down ticks. All sorts of things. You can play with birds for fun, really. Birds are great. Don't get hung up on them there. So that's probably all I'd do for those. So this is equally a little bit flat and boring. It's all white, isn't it? So what can I do about that? Get some clean water and just gently wash across the white area. All the rest of this is now dry, so I can safely do this. Let's get two on the go at once. And this paper definitely takes a little while for that shine to go off. Then I'm going to pick up a very bluey mix of that violet. I'm not using any new colours here. So this side started to dry bizarrely quicker than up there. So again, these are the edges. So I'm going to just come in. This, let's call this the shadow side of the lighthouse. That water in the paper is now just gently pulling that across. But equally, we just have to keep that shadow going where it's dry as well, to suggest this whole side is a little bit more in shadow than the other side. And maybe a little flick in the windows. It's just violet, dulled down violet. It's all this is, what we've been using before. That, I think, is that. If I overdo it, if I keep going, it'll ruin it. So it's a little quick sketch, Happisburgh Lighthouse, and hope you have fun having a go. So how did you get on? It was only a little small sketch that I did there, trying to speed up my videos. Never going to happen. Hopefully you enjoyed the line idea. Have a go. If you haven't got any pens, just try with a pencil. A biro will do, it's absolutely fine. Just see what happens if you take a line for a walk around your picture. Loosen up. I did not loosen up enough on that at all. But see if you can do better than I could actually manage there. Nice to see you all. Take care, happy painting, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.